Okay, so you're uh, about to dive headfirst into the world of Kenyan tech, huh? Exciting stuff. But before you get too far ahead yourself, we got to talk about something that could, well, make or break your project, Kenya's Data Protection Act. But hey, no need to stress. We're going to break it all down for you in this deep dive. Consider us your shortcut to navigating this whole thing.
And you're going to want a shortcut, trust me. This act, it's a beast, and it's got teeth.
So we can't just skim the headlines and call it a day then.
No way. We got to go deeper than that, like way deeper. This isn't just another box to check off, you know? This law, it can seriously mess with your operations, especially since you're working with a Kenyan tech company.
Okay, you definitely piqued my interest and maybe sparked a little bit of healthy fear too. So let's break this thing down. What exactly are we looking at here?
Basically, this is Kenya's answer to GDPR. It was enacted in 2019, so it's still pretty new, which means even companies in Kenya are still trying to figure out all the ins and outs.
So it's like the new kid on the block, but, one with a black belt in data protection.
You got it. And this is where it gets really interesting for you. This act, it covers A and Y company that handles personal data from Kenyan residents. I'm talking, it doesn't matter if you're based in Silicon Valley or on the moon if you're processing data from Kenya, this act applies to you.
Wow, they're not messing around, are they? So it's not about where your company is, it's about where your users are.
You got it. They're serious about protecting their citizens' data.
Okay, starting to get the picture. But let's talk consequences for a second. Why should I be worried? What's the worst case scenario if we don't get this right?
Let me tell you, this is not like a parking ticket, right? Imagine you're weeks away from launching this awesome new feature, everyone's pumped, and bam! You get hit with this massive fine because of how you're collecting user data. This act has some serious weight behind it, and believe me, it can make or break your whole project. And in some cases, not following the rules could even lead to...
Don't leave me hanging.
Jail time.
Okay, you've got my full attention. This is serious stuff.
Jail time.
Okay, you've got my full attention. This is serious stuff. So no more stalling. Let's get into the details. What makes this act so, I don't know, unique? Or maybe the better word is tricky.
Well, let's start with what they consider sensitive data over there. It's probably broader than what you're used to.
Really? More strict than, say, Europe or the U.S.?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're not just talking health info, race, religion, that kind of thing. This act, it lumps in stuff like, get this, property details, marital status, even, believe it or not, the names of your family members, all under sensitive data.
Hold on, family member names, seriously. That's wild. So those apps, the ones that track where your kids are and all that, sounds like they're going to need some serious consent forms.
You're getting it. And since we're on the topic of consent, we got to talk about children's data. The Act is crystal clear on this one. Parental consent, absolutely non-negotiable. And age verification, they are not messing around with that.
So no more of that click here if you're over 13 and hope for the best, huh?
Nope, those days are over. They're serious about protecting kids online, but that's just one part of it. This act gives a lot of power to all users, not just kids. Take data portability, for example.
Right. I saw that in there somewhere. Data portability. Sounds very futuristic, like something out of Star Trek.
Well, it's not quite teleporting data or anything.
Right.
But it's still a pretty big deal. It basically means users have the right to ask for their data in a format they can actually use.
So they can just, take it with them to a different company even.
Exactly. It's all about giving users more control over their own data.
Wow. That changes things. It's like some companies, they try to, build these walls around their user data, right? This act just blew those walls sky high.
You could say that, yeah. It's definitely shaking things up. Companies can't just hold on to data like it's some kind of, bargaining chip anymore. And it's going to be interesting to see how this affects competition between companies.
Fascinating. Out with the old, in with the data freedom, I guess. Okay, so what else is in this thing?
This next part is where things get really interesting, especially for developers. This act introduces something called data protection by design.
Data protection by design. Okay, that sounds important and maybe a little intimidating.
It all comes down to this. You can't just fix a data leak after it happens. You have to build privacy into every single aspect of your business from the very beginning.
So less reacting, more preventing.
Exactly. It's about considering data protection at every stage from the ground up. And it's not just about having some policies written down somewhere.
It's not enough to just have a policy, right? You got to actually follow it.
Exactly. This act is all about accountability. You need to be able to prove you're following the rules. Think Detailed records, regular audits, no more hoping for the best.
That's going to be a big change for some companies, especially those used to doing things their own way, you know?
For sure. And speaking of things that might catch people off guard, let's talk about that data localization thing again. That part of the act, well, it raised some eyebrows for me.
Yeah, it felt kind of vague, like almost a warning, like we might make stricter rules later. What do you think they meant by that?
You're spot on. They're not forcing companies to store data in Kenya just yet. But that whole strategic interests bit tells me they're keeping their options open.
So watch this space. It could get interesting.
Absolutely. This law, it's not set in stone. It's going to evolve, and it'll be fascinating to see where it goes in the next few years.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. For someone like me who's about to jump into the Kenyan tech world, what are the big takeaways? What do I really need to remember?
Here's the bottom line. Number one, compliance. It's not a one-time thing, okay? It's a process. It's got to be built into everything you do.
Got it. Build it in from the start.
Exactly. And this is crucial. Get a good lawyer. Seriously, don't rely on Google for this one. This act has a lot of nuances.
Makes sense, especially with those penalties we talked about.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, build it right, get a good lawyer. What else?
Remember those user rights we discussed? Those are huge. You got to be transparent. Tell your users what data you're collecting, why you need it, and what you're doing with it.
No more hiding behind confusing legal language.
Exactly. Plain and simple. And lastly, I think this act shows you how serious Kenya is about becoming a major player in the tech world. They're not just following the crowd, though. They're doing it their way.
Protecting their citizens' data while still encouraging innovation. That's a tough line to walk.
It is. And that's what I want you to remember from all of this law. It's just one piece of a much bigger global conversation. All around the world, countries are trying to figure out this whole data privacy thing. Who's going to set the standard? How will these laws shape the future of tech, not just in Kenya, but everywhere?
Big questions.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Interesting, for sure. And more than a little exciting, Red. This is all new territory, the decisions we make today. They'll have consequences for years to come. Stay informed, stay curious, and get ready. Because the future of data, it's going to be a wild ride.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Kenya's Data Protection Act. Until next time.